Welcome, another episode. Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, here with Geoff Wilson of Sports Card Investors, a podcast I really enjoy, and I hope you do too. He's got sponsors, and he can tell you about his sponsors, but I'm going to tell you about my sponsors. Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Mike's Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, COMC.com, and last, and certainly not least, Beckett.com. Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, Beckett Media, all these different Beckett entities that I used to know so well, and now I'm just an advisor, they say. But Geoff, happy to have you here again. We talked before, but this episode, let's start off talking about your podcast. And I don't feel like I'm in competition with any other podcast. I think if anything, there could be a synergy, because I listen to these other podcasts, of which there are maybe 10 or 12 that I listen to, and they're all good in their own way. Yep. Yours has a niche. I think the fact that, you have a niche. So tell us about your niche. And again, it sounded like from our previous discussion that there was some real thought behind it.
Yeah, there was. So when I got back into the hobby, as I mentioned before, really, really big in the hobby as a kid, got back into the hobby a couple of years ago. And as I really started exploring the hobby, I got very interested in the hobby from a investment standpoint. Being now a, established business person and having done a lot of investing myself in the tech sector with tech startups, I couldn't help but look at cards and say, what is the investment potential here? Where could some of these cards go? And there's so many aspects of the hobby today that, in my opinion, make investing in modern cards much more feasible, much more strategic. Things obviously like the scarcity, the serial numbering, the autographs that, can enhance value of cards. Right. Grading is a huge differentiator, in the hobby today that makes, in my opinion, investing much more possible and feasible than it was back when I was in it as a kid. So I looked at this and I said, there's great potential here. And so then my next thing was just to consume as much information that was out there as possible about the hobby. And what I found was several other great podcasts. Yes. But none that were really laser focused on investing. Most of the other podcasts I found had great angles. They were either talking about, what's happening in the sports world today and what's happening with kind of new products coming out and that type of thing. Or they were talking about, lessons learned. Obviously yours does a great job of kind of being an oral history from so many years of experience in the hobby. So great different areas these podcasts were exploring. But I said, where is the kind of investing focused one? And since it wasn't there, I said, what, I'm going to start it myself.
Well, back in the day, I have lots of investment advice in my own mind, but basically, when you're doing the price guides, when you go back a number of decades, it'd be unseemly, unsavory for me to all of a sudden say, hey guys, we're going to price the cards, we're going to publish the magazines, and then next weekend we're going to go up and buy, all the stuff, or we're going to recommend to our friends. So we had to have a real strict conflict of interest policy. But now, it's a question of people go to a show and they don't know what to buy, and you are helping them. And again, I admit it. It's a little bit audacious to say, well, you're talking about your experience and you're recommending things that are easy, that are digestible. Yep. So I think you're packaging it in a good way, and your title screams that if this is what you're about, I'm here to help you. Yeah. Now, why did you choose to do? It seems like you're more. I only listen, so I don't YouTube it or do any of the video options. But to what extent did you choose to consciously be video?
Yeah, so I actually...
Even though mostly it's talking heads.
It's interesting. It is more talking heads. It honestly is a little bit more of a podcast style of format. Yeah. But I'm also doing the YouTube series. Right. And it's the same show. So exactly. I record it for YouTube, and then I take the audio track and put that out to podcast. So the reason why I did it that way was because I didn't know what was going to garner more attention. So I said, I'll try both and see what catches on. At the same time, I also launched my blog, sportscardinvestor.com. Right. And so actually for the first several episodes, I was writing a blog post on sportscardinvestor.com that was essentially a summary of the episode. Then I was recording for YouTube. Then I was putting out the podcast. And I simply wanted to see what was going to build traction the quickest. The YouTube show won out very quickly. The YouTube show built traction very quickly. The podcast has had good traction as well, but its growth has been slower. And the blog has started to build traction as well, but its growth was slower too. But
how did the YouTube, did it grow virally?
It grew virally.
Did you get some, did you goose it by some, SEM or SEO or something?
I did not goose it. Now I will say that the title of my show being Sports Card Investor, it ranks well in YouTube when you search for sports cards. Just naturally, because I've got sports cards in the title of my show. YouTube, people don't realize, is the second biggest search engine on the planet. It's right behind. Google is one, YouTube is second. More people search in YouTube than they do in Bing or through voice search on your iPhone or through any other type of search. YouTube is number 2. So people are going into YouTube all day long and they're typing in keywords related to topics that they want to see videos about.
They want to see something.
So if you have a channel and videos that have a lot of words in them that people may be searching for, that helps you come up and that helps people start to find you. That is true on YouTube. That's really not as true with a podcast because when
they're saying that podcasts are going to be more searchable.
And Apple's trying to move the direction of cataloging them and everything like that. But right now, podcasts are not nearly as searchable. And so as a result, I think that's one of the reasons why my YouTube took off quicker. The second reason is when I had my first episode that really caught on, it was at the National. I went to the National this year and it was only about my 5th episode. I had done my first 4 episodes. They all had maybe a couple hundred views, but none of them, nothing substantial. Then I went to the National and I actually set up a little camera, on a tripod in the corner, a little mic. And I just did a quick episode about day 1 at the National, things I've learned and also like what I'm seeing, where I'm seeing deals, where I'm seeing opportunities and what my strategy was going to be, starting day 2 to go and try to find some good deals on cards I wanted. And that episode caught fire. Okay. And I think it caught fire because there were so many people.
Even though you're not GoProing it around the show. You're sitting in a corner.
Yeah. That's all I was doing. It was honestly, from a video standpoint, kind of boring. I was just sitting in the corner. And you could see the show behind me, which was cool and people liked it. Yeah. But I think there were so many people at home that weren't able to make it to the National, that were really interested in learning what was going on at the National, that they were searching YouTube the first day of the National for National, and my video was popping up because it was one of the only ones out there. Right. And I gained a bunch of interest and subscribers that way. And then from there, every subsequent episode got more and more views because people started sharing them virally and a lot on social, with friends, all that type of thing.
Amazing. That makes, but did you start? I started in July. Did you start in July?
I started in July too. Yeah. My first episode was July 22nd.
You realize, I think if people have listened, they know these are unscripted and largely unedited, but I thought I'd put investment or something in my title. Mm-hmm. And I thought about it against it because I thought, no, I think Sports Card Insights captures what I want to say better, is that I'm not always going to have investment advice, but I don't want to preclude that I won't. But if it's Sports Card Insights, I can talk about rarities. I can talk about selling philosophies without being strictly by this. Like, do you ever get Men's Health? Eat this, not that.
Yeah.
That's a little tricky, even though nutritionally, I want the bad stuff sometimes. And sometimes I just want cards that are not necessarily going to be the best investment, but something I'm really going to enjoy.
And I try to, with my episodes, so I do some episodes where I talk about, hey, these are 5 cards I'm buying and why I'm buying them. But then I always try to mix those in with doing other episodes where I talk more about kind of general philosophy about how you can find good deals on cards or that type of thing. So people who aren't as focused on, I want to buy the hot modern player, who Geoff talks about, there's still episodes where they can hopefully learn a lot of tips and tricks that can help you no matter if you're collecting modern or vintage, no matter if you're collecting star players or non-star players, rare cards or common cards, whatever it may be. Yeah,
except that, like I said, I think your niche that will broaden over time is to keep it simple enough that somebody can come in and have a good experience.
And that is
true. They come into a show and they're not overwhelmed.
Yes.
In fact, that's one of the problems with the National. And one of the reasons you got traction is because 100%. It's an overwhelming thing. 100%. And so here's a guy, hats off to you. You're demystifying the National for some of these people who maybe have never been. I've been to every single one, and it's still pretty overwhelming when you walk in.
Yeah.
So
it is. And it's an amazing sight to see. And for anyone out there listening, if you've not been to a National, it's a heck of a lot of fun and a great experience to walk around the show floor.
I kind of have, I've been buddies with those guys for a long time. Our first tribute episode was about Mike Burkus, who was a close personal friend. And so I go all the way back to the beginning of the National. So it's really worthy of promotion and support and all that stuff. But, it's just, I like what you're doing. What about your premium content? Do you want to talk about that? Because that's a little bit controversial in some circles, but you seem like a guy that's reasoned through and purposefully chosen this course and made mostly right decisions. So what's the decision point there?
So in a further attempt to demystify the market and to make it more accessible and allow people to understand it better, I've been investing. So I've been using some of my developers at my primary company, 352, to tap into some of the data sources available on the internet right now. One of the primary ones being eBay, with their APIs and eBay sales and everything like that. And we are attempting to map market trends. so that we can see market trends in real time. My general philosophy is with newer people coming into the hobby, with the people who have come in recently who are looking at it kind of from an investment standpoint, what appeals to them is the concept of the sports card market looking more like the stock market.
With more fluidity or more tracking,
real time,
real time
tickers, up and down, daily charts, real time. That's what appeals to them. They want to see the movement of Patrick Mahomes, great example. Morning
StockX trying to do
StockX,
like
yes.
that?
And so a lot of the new
pit?
companies, yes, and even ComC is moving more in that direction. Like if you've been looking at, what Tim and Check Out My Cards have been putting out on social media recently, they've been doing a lot of posts about like, flipping and, someone bought this card at ComC last month and then here's how it's gone up in value over the last 30 days because they're trying to appeal more and more to that niche because there's, StockX, ComC, and I think you're going to see a lot of other companies come along that are trying to appeal to that as well. So that's the premium content that I'm building is really around that. It's really around people who are going to be interested in knowing what cards are moving.
You're going to give them an edge. You're going to try to give them an edge. And if you give them an edge that is something that works, they would be willing to pay for that.
And that's exactly, that's
But again, the time is of the essence there. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm more of a long tail guy and it's impractical. There's probably an algorithmic solution, but would you have to have a relationship with eBay in terms of, or would you be scraping? Or
no, eBay has an open API. Obviously, there's certain terms and conditions you have to comply with, but they have an open API where you can get data from the last 90 days. If you want to get data longer than that, you have to build a relationship with them, and that's something that I'm aspiring to do. But they have an open API, so you can actually go in and get a lot of this type of information. And there's a lot of sites out there right now that are pulling sales histories and that kind of stuff from eBay. I just try to take the analysis of that to the next level by looking at it from more of a kind of a market standpoint rather than looking at it from a individual card standpoint and trying to, so I'm still looking at individual cards, but
velocity as well as,
velocity, movement of this card compared to this card compared to this card, and then trying to map it back to maybe what has triggered that movement as well so that, what are
trading.
Yeah. So I think that's where a lot of the newer people coming to the hobby are interested in seeing it go. You're getting a lot of daily fantasy sports players flooding into the hobby right now, and that's what they're used to when they play daily fantasy sports.
Yeah. I've always thought there were tie-ins there, but and somebody will do that. We'll see what happens with StockX. Yeah. It's early in the game there, and I think it's like I said, I love the fact that people are doing things. They're not contemplating or they're not pontificating. They're putting their money where their mouth is and they're starting things. And again, that's one of the things I appreciate about what you're doing, Geoff, is that you're jumping out there and you're approaching it as a business. I mean, I've been back and forth with others about, is this a hobby or is it a business? The answer is yes.
Yeah, it can be both.
It's both. But some of the things that make it a hobby make it a business that is counter-instinctual. But in the part of the matrix you're dealing with, it's very instinctual. It's very visceral. It's very limbic. People say, "I see it. I want it. It's going up." It's a very simple thing. And so again, my hat's off to you for demystifying what could be a daunting industry. And again, listeners, check out Sports Card Investors with Geoff Wilson, a regular twice a week. Are you pretty much?
Twice a week? Yep.
Yeah. So twice a week podcast and YouTube, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying visiting with Geoff right now. Geoff, we'll do it again. Thanks again for your candid remarks. Look forward to seeing these new initiatives that you're bringing forth.
Thank you.